It's great to be back presenting another episode of Humans of HR, where I'm in conversation with Mr. Chan Narayan. In the first episode, we spoke about the operating values and the kind of importance that it has. We also spoke about theory X, theory Y, and today we're going to dwell a little more on the operating values and how that translates into an ecosystem and environment for everybody to thrive in an organization. So, welcome back, Chief. How are you doing?
Very good. Happy to be back.
Great. So, in the earlier episode, we spoke about the first three basic operating values. I think it started with fairness, meritocracy, and today I want you to explain a little bit more on on the subsequent set of values, and we will also try and throw in examples to see how that translates into a fantastic working environment for professionals to not just survive, but do phenomenally well.
Mm. Sure. So, to recap, we talked about operating values, which were fair play and meritocracy and transparency. And the logic there was that all of us human beings want to be treated specially. And if it is not special, then at least fairly. And the only way that an organization can ensure that people are treated fairly is when they're meritocratic, that they uh, provide opportunities and roles and progression based on the contribution of the person to the organization's goals.
Mm.
And you can't have meritocracy unless you also have transparency. When people can see that they are being treated meritocratic on merit, and so are others. And therefore, it becomes easier for them to acknowledge that there's somebody else who performed better than them. And so they've got the opportunity, but doesn't mean that I've lost out. It only tells me that if I deliver the same or better, I have the same opportunity tomorrow. So these values are, uh, difficult to build into processes and systems. And
I was about to ask the question for larger organizations which have operations in multiple countries. Um, how do you ensure, as an HR leader, um, that the meritocracy and the transparency, because it's either there for everybody, and only then is it called transparent. So, in a larger organization spread across countries, how do you ensure that? Because it's difficult to compare many a times, because people coming from a different pedigree are difficult to measure against each other. So how do you put meritocracy and transparency, especially again when we're talking about operations that is spread across multiple locations and countries?
sure. So we do have a few clients who have operations across multiple geographies, multiple nationalities, and it's difficult. To what level can you be transparent? And there are, if you're operating out of two different economies, obviously the economics, and that means your payroll is going to be different. Now, one of the best examples that I can give of complete transparency and meritocracy comes from an organization called SEMCO, as detailed by the promoter, the owner of. He doesn't like to be called the owner, but anyways, he holds the maximum equity, is what I understand. Ricardo Semler. He's written a brilliant book called Maverick. I highly recommend that book to every HR professional who's interested in doing outstanding work and grow as a professional. It's a must read. In fact, reading that book is what prompted me, after being an engineer for 7 years, to take up HR as a specialization. So, what he says is, and let's take payroll. How much does a person get paid? So Ricardo says that there are five factors that go into the transparency of or into determining somebody's pay. And he says only three of them are in the control of the organization. The first one is what he calls intrinsic value. If my work is adding some value to the outcome or to the product or to the service of the organization, then obviously I cannot be paid more than the value that I'm contributing, because then it won't be sustainable.
Correct.
Example, let's say that we are producing one widget, and that the organization is selling for 100 rupees. My contribution in producing that widget is, let's say, 10 rupees. We have a way to find that out, and I'll explain how SEMCO does that. Let's say my contribution is 10 rupees. So as long as I'm paid 10 rupees or less, the organization is sustainable. The moment I'm paid 11 rupees, that additional 1 rupee that is being paid over and above the value that I've contributed is going to drag the organization down.
Okay, so that explains the intrinsic value.
Intrinsic value. How does SEMCO provide help transparently share the intrinsic value of anybody's role or contribution? They put on the table all their books of accounts. Books of accounts is
Mm.
where you know how much came in and how much went out, including into the payroll. And so it is possible for people to look at these and figure out what is the value that I'm contributing. Of course, if you ask auditors, they do this all the time in terms of allocating how much value in the value chain a role or a team is contributing. It's possible.
So it's associating the contribution to a certain number, which is accepted across.
That's correct.
Okay, that's the intrinsic
So that's
value.
the first one. It's the intrinsic value that an individual is contributing. The second factor is what is called market parity. Market parity is that if I'm operating in a particular place, like, for example, Hyderabad, what is the market? What is the other companies paying an individual in a similar role with a similar qualification or the same qualification, same or similar work experience, same or similar skills? What is the market paying?
So it's benchmarking.
It's
It's benchmarking against the market.
benchmarking. And so obviously, I would like to be somewhere on that benchmark.
Correct.
If there are 100 companies that have a similar role, I can find out through salary surveys what each of these companies are paying for that role. And I can choose
Correct.
to be at the 50th percentile, right in bang in the middle of these 100 companies. So there are 49 companies that pay more than my company for this role. And there are 50 companies that pay less than
Less than.
me for this role. Or I could choose to be in the 95th or 96th percentile. So if I'm in the
Correct.
96th percentile, that means I'm amongst the top 5% of pay of people of organizations for this role.
Correct.
This is what salary surveys provide. And so what
Okay.
SEMCO does is that it orders all the salary surveys that are available for each geography and puts it on the table so that employees can access that and see where they are. The third,
So if I was to summarize, the management and the employees are making decision based on the same set of data.
uh,
The survey that you're talking
that is
about, the
correct.
survey data.
That is correct. Now,
Correct.
of course,
Okay.
employees could feel that I should be paid at the 100th percentile, which is the best.
Correct.
And the organization might strategically think that we need to be at 76th percentile, for example. So we are in the top quartile. We're not the best paymaster, but we are amongst the top quarter of all the companies in terms of
And
the.
I think this would largely depend on the available resources in the market.
That is
Uh,
each of these roles. There is a
Correct.
demand supply equation also that's
Correct.
happens.
Right.
Um, the third factor is what is called internal parity.
Mhm.
Now, by the way,
Okay.
internal parity is what creates the maximum challenges for an organization. Because I might be individually happy with what is my pay package till the
Mm,
time that I learn that somebody who is doing a similar role, same qualification, same experience, same skills is getting paid more.
more true.
And now internal parity, therefore, is what do I as an organization pay to an individual with certain set of qualifications and experience and skills, what do I pay them? And so I can't be very dissimilar in terms of pay, my of pay the salary for individual one and individual two. It has to be within a narrow band. So even this data is publicly made available in SEMCO. Everybody's salary is put up for everybody else to see. Now, of course, this kind of a radical transparency is very difficult, if not impossible, for most organizations to do.
And it's rightly named a maverick, right? It's
That's
one needs to be a maverick to to come up with something like this and execute it to the T. But yes, as we discussed, I think we will pick at least one or two feathers of the cap, if not the whole offering that he has. So yes, what do you think is the next factor?
Yeah, so these are the three factors that are visible to the company and they're fairly objective,
Great.
I would say. And therefore, the earlier point that I was making, the market parity for a software engineer in India vis-a-vis a software engineer in the US is a
Mm-hmm.
huge arbitrage
Mm,
just because of the demand and supply equation in two different geographies, as well as the economics, the difference in the economics in these two places. And therefore, people will, it can't be a global, you know, benchmark.
mhm.
Interestingly, some companies actually hire at the entry level for example, if as a company you're a global giant, anybody who wants to search anything on the internet was so far going to this company's website. That's the hint. When they designed their pay, for example, for their India operations or across the globe, they benchmarked it in terms of the highest economy location that they were working in, which was New York in the US. And their contention was that each of my software engineers is a global resource. And I should be able to pick them up from whichever location they're currently in, whichever project they are in, and redeploy them to any other location across the globe at a moment's notice. And that will allow me to be able to move very fast and to give people career options across the globe that will help me showcase my meritocracy as an organization. And so they benchmarked uh, each location's payroll based on the highest cost economy or location that they were operating in and only adjusting for purchasing power parity. Now, purchasing power parity is known for each geographical location. If what does $100 in New York translate into for a person who's in Hyderabad? So it will not exactly, for example, translate into equivalent of $100 here. It will not be 880 rupees, for example, but
Mm.
it will, sorry, 8,800 rupees, but it will be somewhere, it will be a little less because services cost less. Accommodation costs much less than in New York. So you have these equations for purchasing power parity so that you can translate uh, that compensation from location one to location two to location three, etc. So you can follow, you can find benchmarks that you adhere to. Uh, I would say that this is kind of a no-brainer for organizations that require the most outstanding talent in a particular field, and they can't afford to lose them to their competitors.
mm.
So they have no option probably today than to do that. Well, H-1B visa fee,
Oh,
not.
let's not even get there.
So back to you. So this is there are ways to kind of operationalize these things. Now, what
Okay.
is different between operating characteristic
Mm.
and operating values? I can explain. So back to you, and
Sure. So, in terms of meritocracy, fairness, and transparency, there are ways in which that can be established. And yes, again, I strongly recommend reading the book Maverick. But at the same time, I think it has to be the vision of the leader within the organization. Because when I read that book, Ricardo Semler very clearly dismantled a lot of legacy systems and processes that were in the organization. And he said, this is how it needs to be done, and brought that in. So again, the vision of the leader surely has a huge role to play here. Uh, Now let's move on to the next set of characteristics.
sure. So the next three are what I label as operating characteristics, because every single transaction that a person has with the organization demonstrates these values. The first of these is speed. Each of these three are built into the fabric, into the operating mechanisms, into the design of how the organization works, so that
Mm.
every single time it happens. Let me again give you an example that's very practical. Suppose there is an employee and they discover that there is an error in their this month's salary. They discover this on the first of the month after the salary gets credited.
Okay.
And they discover that they've received only 30% of what they should have received. And because there seems to be some problem that had occurred. For example, the employee might have been traveling away from home location, and there is no the server at the home location does not the attendance server uh, doesn't show the person as having come in, and there is no leave application or whatever at the back end. So it'll calculate as loss of pay for the number of days that the person's attendance is not reflected in the attendance server. Could be. So I'm just kind of creating a
Uh,
imaginary situation.
mm,
So
mm.
now, what does the organization do? What will the employee do? The employee is immediately going to call the HR business partner or the HR manager, as the case may be. What kind of a conversation is it likely to be? A happy one, unhappy one? It's going to be it's going to
Not
be
pleasant for sure.
very pleasant. Now, as an organization, how do you want to respond? What do you think is the appropriate time?
It's something to do with the paycheck. So the sooner the better. I
So,
mean, uh, I mean, the more we delay it, what if the balance is actually moving closer to my next paycheck? So I have to maybe live this month with lesser money in my pocket, and that's not a great
yeah,
experience.
you sound like a typical finance and accounts person. Say the error is made. Now we can only correct it next month. Do you think this person is going to be happy about this?
Yeah, because the standard response many times is we will correct this in the
Next,
immediate next cycle,
yeah.
and the next cycle is 20 days, 30
Oh,
days
it's
down the
30 days
line. So
away. Yeah.
30 days away. Right?
So
So
now if you understand the sensitivity of this issue, you would say that probably making the correction within the next 24 hours to 48 hours would be an acceptable solution for this employee. If you're able to do that faster, brilliant. But even
great.
if not immediately, it takes 24 to 48 hours. I think the person will be able to live with that. Now, if
Correct.
you want to close this issue within 24 to 48 hours, you need to have a process in place that makes these exceptions or that handles these kind of issues. So unless you have documented and you have made a provision for these kind of issues that do not wait till the next payroll cycle, that's 30 days away, you're going to have a very unhappy employee.
Correct.
You failed. It's not that the money will not be paid. It's not that there is a contention in terms of uh, should the person be paid that balance or not. And yet you're not resolving that issue for 30 days from the perspective of the employee. Well, the experience that the employee has then, therefore, would be a horrible one.
Mm.
Nobody would like it. And so one needs to, and I'm not saying that you should do it within 2 hours or 24 hours or 48 hours. I'm saying that what is appropriate. Because if you say 24 hours and the issue comes up on a Saturday evening, and if you haven't made provisions for somebody to handle it over the weekend, and you can anyways not, yeah, probably not credit it on a, actually today you can credit it at a moment's notice through a bank transfer, a bank account to bank account transfer. It's possible to do it, but unless you put in place all the mechanisms for it beforehand, it's not going to happen.
Mm.
So I'll give you another practical example. One of the reasons why the four-star hotels were known for their customer service was, and this is an example from a long time back, maybe 20 years, 25 years back, so it may have become even better. An individual waiter or a concierge person is assigned to every guest in the hotel.
Mm.
And this concierge was allowed a budget of $400,
Mhm.
completely discretionary, to do whatever they want, they think is appropriate to do for the guest, which will make them happy. Now,
Mhm.
$400 is a huge amount of money. And so they can order a pizza, they can order get some gifts, they can do something for the organize something which they think is going to make the guest really kind of feel overwhelmed in terms of the hospitality.
Mhm.
And so, of course, they were rated amongst I don't know what's the current context, but I think they were rated amongst the best, if not the best, in terms of their hospitality. So they thought about it and they designed a system that took out all the bureaucracy and approvals and whatever, and made that happen and made that come alive for the customers. So speed is appropriate speed, if I may, for each of the things that as an organization we need to accomplish or deliver or do in terms of our response to a situation. It's very important to think through and to plan beforehand, and then to incorporate into your process and systems so that you're able to do it consistently every time.
And I
Train
also believe,
handle that.
speed also makes the person feel heard. I
Absolutely.
have a problem, and I come to you with my problem, and when you demonstrate speed, it just shows that I'm important or I exist for the organization.
Yeah.
Um, if I'm just another number and I have to wait,
Yeah.
then I don't
It's
feel
like a recorded call on customer service saying your call is
correct.
important to us. Please wait. Your expected wait time is 11 minutes. God
True.
bless you.
So yes, speed has so many interpretations, and it can surely impact the way uh, every employee kind of looks at the organization. True.
So the
What?
founder and leadership have to look at this really, really sensitively and say, what do I want people to experience and what do I want them to feel?
Mm.
and then kind of design the system, reverse engineer based on what you want people to experience and feel.
And I mean, another example that we've discussed in the past is when the when the reimbursement process is slow, people will choose not to spend money. And when they choose not to spend money, they are, in a way, hurting the
Reducing,
chances of the organization
you're
growing.
reducing the prospects of the organization in the real world.
Right. So, and any no organization should expect the employee to spend things out of their pocket
That's right.
and and hold it for too long.
Yeah.
So yes, speed surely is a very, very important characteristic. Correct. True.
And the next one, you can have speed
Hmm.
in responding,
Hmm.
but you can come back with a lot of speed and say no all the time. No, our doesn't allow it, or we can't do it so fast. It has to go through this process. I mean, you throw the rule book at the person. So the next value or operating characteristic is flexibility. I cannot emphasize how important this one is. If an Now, why do organizations make policies, including HR policies and travel policies and everything else, finance policies, accounting policies? They do this to limit their expenses, that we have allocated or budgeted this much for these activities. And so it seems sensible that we should follow these rules so that we stay within the budget. We don't go over the budget. It's important. But I do not understand what prevents people from creating customized solutions, because every situation could be very different. People may not have thought about an actual situation where the rules clash with common sense. And if the cost is same or similar, what is preventing the organization and the role holder who has to decide from saying yes? I'll give you an example. It's a personal example. As an engineer, as a sales engineer, I had to travel to this place quite often, which was about 40 kilometers away from the city, because this was an industrial area.
Okay.
And my organization had a rule, and the rule was that the sales engineer can hire a taxi, dedicated taxi, if and only if the distance was more than 50 kilometers.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, this was 40 kilometers. Now, in those days, hiring a taxi for 8 hours and 80 kilometers used to cost somewhere around 400 rupees.
Mm.
So, however, there's another rule for the travel process, which was that if there are two engineers, then they can together two or more engineers, they could together hire a shared taxi for distances about 25 kilometers.
Mm.
So guess what the engineers in my office did? They
Find a plus
never
one.
went alone. They always asked, "Hey, buddy, I'm going on in this direction. Would you like to accompany me?"
Mm.
So now this other guy had no business traveling to that city and to that out location, but just to humor this fellow and kind of also the two people traveling where only one was needed. Why? And you're bearing that other guy's travel cost. He really didn't need to go. But
Great.
these two are buddies. They're saying, okay, let's go. Yeah, there's no fun in going alone. So you're incurring the additional travel cost for that person. You're incurring an additional stay location in the hotel for this second person. And that interestingly used to cost, I mean, as per the budget, was 1,200 rupees for, boarding and lodging per day. So instead of giving this one engineer that 400 rupees, you are underwriting a cost of 1,200 plus, the travel, which would probably cost another 2,000, 3,000 rupees back and
Plus
forth.
the loss of productivity for somebody traveling with no
And the
work.
loss of productivity, because only, even if it was a sincere visit together, one client is, you may have exclusive clients. One guy goes and meets the client, the other guy is sitting in the car, and then vice versa. You're basically only doing 4 hours of work in the 8 hours of travel. It didn't make any sense. So and I'm giving this example to help people understand that somebody sitting in the headquarters makes some nonsensical rules. They have no idea of what the ground reality is, or and I'm not saying that they're idiots. They're not. Maybe nobody came back and told them that, look, for this location, you need to make a different rule. But I'm saying that rules are guidelines and they're meant to reduce or to contain your expenses. But if they're ending up creating more expenses for you, reducing the productivity, then they're obviously stupid rules. They're perverse rules. And so, why can't you trust the people and help them understand that, look, try and do it within this cost.
Mhm, mhm.
And we are happy to be flexible.
Chief, see,
And let me give
if
a
the
great
rule,
example of flexibility with SEMCO. SEMCO has
mm,
no policies on travel policies. They say you do what you think is right and proper. You want to travel business class. You want to travel economy class, you travel. You want to go and stay in a five-star hotel, that's up to you. I'm only interested in the outcome. Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
uh, see, if my rules kind of cover 90% of the scenarios that I encounter, and if I'm flexible for the remaining 10%, I think that would be counted as flexibility.
I'm reluctant to say that, Harish, for the simple reason that a lot of times in a society which is very autocratic, we have a lot of autocratic leaders in powerful positions we've elected. Uh, so you like somebody who will kind of tell you what to do, comes from top down. Um, People will assume that this will, you can't fight it. And
Mhm.
people have enormous ingenuity. They will figure out a solution to their problems at your
Correct,
cost.
correct.
So why are you treating them like children? And I mean, I think even children should not be treated that way. You treat them like adults. I mean, that's where the theory X and the theory Y comes into play. Do you think people are responsible and they will take ownership and they will ensure that the company doesn't suffer? Or do you think that they are out to take the company for a ride? You think the world is theory X, you'll discover that really the world is theory X plus some more. If you think world is theory Y, you'll discover really there are brilliant people that who were just kind of not visible because your policies and procedures and process were choking them. They're preventing them from being brilliant, as brilliant as they could be. So I think there has to be some wisdom in what you put as a guideline. And you take pains to explain to people saying that, look, this is a guideline. Within this, amount you can choose, it's okay. No, why should somebody have to come back and explain, look, I spent 10 rupees more on this, 100 rupees more on this? It's devaluing the other person's integrity. The Yeah,
Chief, do you
organizations
also?
have a lot of rules, for example, in terms of fiduciary responsibility. At each level, if there are
Mhm,
multiple signatories for signing checks on behalf of the organization, each role has a higher and a higher and a higher limit. For example, as the head of HR, I was co-signing a lot of the checks to all the vendors of my organization. uh,
Mhm.
because they were below this certain amount. Only the highest amounts would go to the CEO or to the directors of the company. And so all finance folks have created this cascade down. What is preventing us from giving the same autonomy for $1,000 for a minuscule amount to people who actually need it and whose life becomes so much easier?
So I mean, on one side, as you say, this process is to reduce the cost for the organization. And I see that on the other side, it is also the convenience of a person or a role for which this is being designed. Like, for example, if the person who approves all the reimbursement files, if they feel that, okay, fine, I'm going to do this only once a month,
Hmm.
or maybe once every 2 months, no, the bills are going to be piling. So yes, the intent on paper is to save money for the organization, but many times it is also the convenience of or the idea of avoiding inconvenience more
Great
so.
point. Yeah. So you see, okay, that's a very interesting insight, and let me explain this a little further. Rules are made essentially, and especially with respect to budgeting or with respect to finance or fiduciary issues, are made primarily with these three priorities. The first priority is to ensure compliance.
Correct,
If you are a registered, if you are a incorporation, you have some legal duties. You can't just
true,
spend money. Like, you need to have a trail. You need, which can be verified, saying that I've spent
correct,
this money for this. There needs to be a proof. There needs to be a budget. There needs to be etc. So there is a process. So the first rule is in terms of documentation or for compliance. The second one is for ease of uh, following these rules for the person who is responsible for it, which is what you were explaining.
correct,
The CFO has to sign off on anything to do with payroll. So he's going to say that don't bring this to me every single day because you've made a mistake. I'm going to do this only on the 30th of the month. And you better have your, and all the other procedures and process will be oriented to ensure that there is only one signature. If,
correct,
for example, if vendors have to be paid, and the moment a vendor presents a check, the accounts person can't go into the CEO's room bearing that check and saying, "Please sign."
correct.
I mean, even if the CEO is a really cool person, I think if
It's
this
a criminal
happens three
waste of his
times in
time.
a day, the cup is full. And he's going to say,
Correct,
or she's going to say, look, forget about it. You better bring this to me on Saturday evenings or Friday evening, second half. And this is the time. And you better bring A, B, C, D, E as explanations before you expect me to sign. You can't just rush in and ask me that this is urgent or important and sign
correct,
this. So now
correct, correct. True.
your vendor payment has gone for a toss because you may have promised something. Their experience becomes bad. Their workaround is going to be very simple. They're going to say this company takes longer to pay me, so I will add an interest component that I am bearing on that same cost. So their supplies become costlier to you.
True.
So you have to figure out a smart system. And therefore, one of the systems that the finance team does is that expenses or payments below 1,000 rupees can be done through a cash voucher. Of course, there are legalities also involved. You can't pay
Correct.
more than an X amount in cash, and there is a tax deduction at source, etc. So it has to be done right. There are compliance issues. So the least thought is about the person who's at the receiving end of this. Please think about that person. And in the earlier days, there used to be. I'm sure you escaped that. You're a digital native. I'm a digital immigrant. Earlier days, there used to be an instrument which was called the demand draft. and it was a procedure to get the demand draft made, especially if you had to pay a fees or pay a government organization. You had to make a demand draft, and for that you needed to know there's a specific bank, so you had to go to your bank, ask them to make a demand draft to that bank, and there's this code that they have to fill in, and then the procedure for it was pretty problematic. You had to first line up, deposit, fill the demand draft requisition form, give the money and the form to the teller. The teller will give you the counterfoil and a token, and then he'll tell you come after 2 p.m. And then you come after 2 p.m., you stand in a queue and wait for your token to come up. And then when your token has come up, then the draft is sent to the bank manager's room, because beyond a certain limit, the
You
bank
have to
manager has
sign.
to countersign. And so then you're waiting. Bank manager might be dealing with something else. So you're waiting till the signature happens. Then it comes back to the dispenser, who will look and cross-validate, do an entry on the register, and then give you the demand draft. It would take hours to do this. It was a days. And then, of course, you have to rush to the bank, rush to the post office to send it on through a registered post acknowledgement due. So that was another procedure. Today, you can just do it online instantly, uh, and that's acceptable. So I think one of the banks kind of looked at it in the right way, but by the
The
time,
pre-signed ones you're talking about.
yeah, pre-fed, pre-signed, DDs fed into the printing machine, and you enter as a customer, you directly enter all the details, and below a certain amount, the draft will come as a printout. If you make a mistake, you have nobody to blame. Then you go into the manual mode and get it corrected, and etc. But so, of course, the ATMs and the digital payment gateways have all completely made those mostly redundant. I still think there are some cases where you have to submit a bank guarantee, etc. But yeah, I think one needs to be sensible about these things. Back to you.
Right. So, so in terms of um, operating culture, right? Operating values is what we call operating culture. I think we spoke about the importance of speed. I think we spoke about
Flexibility.
flexibility and ways in which an organization can demonstrate that. And what would be the next one?
Inclusion. Being able to welcome the entire amount of diversity that you can accommodate in your organization. Now, people underrate this. They
Oh,
look
yes,
at it as some kind of diversity, inclusion, etc. No, I think my experience is that the more the amount of diversity that you're able to encompass within your organization, the stronger your organization is, because
absolutely.
you've enabled yourself with so many human beings who can look at things from very different perspectives. And when you have people like that inside your organizations, usually, and they're involved and they have a say, they will ensure that you don't end up doing anything wrong. Number one. Number two, the kind of different perspectives, skills, um, understanding of the context in the outside world where you're doing your business, all of that is so much richer. That helps you, do things brilliantly right in the first iteration. You don't have to fail and learn a lot of times, because somebody inside your organization will be able to tell you this is the problem you'll run with this target group, because you have this challenge there which you've not accounted for. Why? Because it's their lived reality every day. So, more the diversity, the stronger that organization is. And of course, it's so much more happier. It's so much more fulfilling.
Hmm.
The- if you're getting to meet people who are brilliant in a very different aspect from yours, you feel inspired. You respect that individual, and you build through their eyes, through their experiences, listening to that, understanding that, you become a better human being, you become a better manager, you become a better leader.
Now, how many times have we seen founders bringing people who are very similar to them on board,
Yeah,
right?
that's a challenge.
Instead of getting people who bring in complementary skill sets,
Yeah.
right? So complementary skill sets, it could be found in a diverse group,
Hmm.
and then we know which direction that story is heading towards,
Hmm.
right? So yes,
There is one more
diversity.
aspect to this, Harish,
Mm, mm, mm,
and that aspect is, how do you treat people?
mm.
Human beings go through ups and downs in their life. There is hardly anybody out there who is on an even kind of a path, or even if it is on an even, upswing. All of us have our ups and downs. We'll all fall sick at some point of time. We will all go through challenges in our relationships, in our finances, in our mental health, in our physical health. And as an organization, are you being a mercenary? You're saying, I'm paying you for this. If you don't deliver that to me, I'll cut you out. Is that what it is about? Now, the challenge that organizations don't understand is that if you treat people as mercenaries, you will end up attracting only mercenaries in your organizations.
Correct. I
People
mean,
who
what
will
we
take their
spoke
pound
about.
of flesh,
Mm,
do
mm.
what you wanted them to do, but they will also be looking out saying, who is going to pay me more? My services are for hire.
Correct. I mean, we did touch about this in the earlier episode where I mean, how we look at people is how people reflect back on us. So that's how we
So
end
you
up.
need to have inclusion for people who are going through a struggle. How are you supporting them? How are you helping them? Look, even labor laws say that, even for performance, you just can't fire somebody, at least in India, at least on paper, that you give them time, you put them on a performance improvement plan, you give them help and training. It's only at the end of the road, after you have tried and honestly, and there is documentation around the effort that you've made to help the person come up, only then it is possible for you to. I think, and that's my complaint with most of the HR folks, that there is a spirit of the law and there is a letter of the law.
Mm,
We are very good at figuring out ways through which we can skirt the spirit of the law while being within the letter of the law.
mm.
Don't want somebody to continue threaten the person. Right now, it's happening around us in the IT world. You threaten the person that if you don't resign, I will terminate you, and that'll go on your record.
Correct.
So these are unfair practices, unethical practices. They are illegal as well, except that you found via media, or you found a technical loophole which you're exploiting. Not fair. And don't think people are idiots. They understand exactly what you're doing. You're converting them into mercenaries. The next organization they go to, they will not trust the organization. They will
Mm.
give only as much as they think. Up north, you have this saying, "इतने पैसे में इतना ही काम होता है."
Very true. So we spoke about speed, we spoke about flexibility, we spoke about inclusivity, right? And I know there is one more that
Most
puts everything
fundamental one,
together.
and that's
So what's that?
integrity. None of all of these six things that we talked about will work unless there is integrity. Now, integrity means you will do what you say you will do. There's no difference between what you say and what you do. You can't say on your website that we have respect for employees, and then you make them line up under the sun when they're coming to give an interview to you.
Mm,
People are very alert about integrity. They are constantly judging. Do you do what you say you're doing, or is it just words on your website? And when they see there is a difference, they will not trust you. They will do the least that will that is above the expectation, because they know that you're not going to keep your word. You will find some fine print to create a disadvantage for me, to treat me unfairly, and to be nasty to me. And so I don't want to be in that position where I'm hurt or taken advantage of, or made to feel like a fool.
And I think integrity is a fantastic currency.
Yep.
Uh, and I think people trade in that. Like,
Mm.
for example, if I don't demonstrate integrity towards you, you will surely not choose to trade with me in the same currency. I mean, this surely is not a one-way traffic. I
Yeah.
mean, it has to be equal on both ends, fair. So integrity kind of ties everything together, right? You talk about meritocracy, we talk about transparency, talk about speed, we talk about flexibility, we talk about inclusiveness. But unless and until there's integrity to talk this whole thing, all of them kind of fall apart. Very true.
Organizations need to do whatever it takes to keep their word, especially with employees, customers, partners.
Hmm. I
To
think I think in the next session, next recording, we will talk about the whole ecosystem. We're not looking at just employees alone. We're also talking about partners. We're talking about vendors. We're talking about people who are part of the ecosystem, the community. I think that's going to be what we should be talking about in the next session. So for this one, I think we would love to close it here because we've gone past the 40-minute mark. Well, thank you so much once again. I think all the seven, the three values and four characteristics put together will surely give a lot to think about for humans of HR, irrespective of whatever role that they are playing. Um, is it easy? I don't think so.
no, it's
Nobody
not.
said this is easy. Is it impossible? No,
Not at
again, because
all.
we've seen organizations which have done that. Again, it comes down to the intent, it comes down to the vision on what is it that you want your folks to experience. So, thank you so much, Chief. Lovely talking to you as always. And to our viewers, thank you for tuning in. Do leave a comment, like, and subscribe to our channel. Help us reach out to a lot of humans of HR so that we come together as a clan and build one of the best practices possible through learnings of each other. Looking forward to the next recording where we're going to be talking about how to take care of the entire ecosystem, which actually encompasses a lot of people who actually touch and connect with an organization. Thank you so much. See you in the next recording.
Thank you, Harish. Bye bye.